All right, welcome back. We are back, baby. Huddle podcast episode. I believe it's been a minute. I think we're on 6. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think 6.
Um, Sorry we were gone for probably a little too long, but I just finished a move. I got a little bit different of a setup now. Hayden's been working on some job stuff, but we're back right on time. We're in the right in the middle of the NFL playoffs. We're finishing up college football. So we got a lot to talk about, man. You ready? We feeling good?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's go. Um, so we're gonna start with a little NFL wild card recap. We're gonna start with the Saturday games, kind of go in order. And the first game, of course, the NFL always throws us in the 4:30 Saturday slot. Never a doubt. The Texans beat the Chargers 32-12 in a game that I thought my Texans had no shot of winning. I'll start with you on this one. Was this like a Chargers meltdown or more of a Texans win? Where do you put more of the blame or the
I think you can attribute it to both, but I definitely think that was a Chargers meltdown. Only because, like, I think it's fair to say, like, if you go off like the head coach and quarterback duo, you would probably take Harbaugh and Herbert. I think that's like you can make the argument for it, and it's like fair to say. Um, but Herbert looked terrible. I don't know what happened that game. That he threw 4 picks and one of them wasn't on him. Will Disley couldn't catch anything on that
yeah
on Saturday, but the pick he threw to Lassiter,
yeah
he threw like a
Watson?
fastball through Ladd's hands that Ladd had to jump 10 feet in the air for, and then that ball to Stingley at the end of the game was like it just wasn't there. And you would think too, like they were gonna run the ball well behind the tackles and kind of avoid. That's what the Niners did against the Rams all those years. They would run away from Donald or they'd run at him and they'd use the strength of their offensive line. So I thought Alt and what's his name Slater were gonna get like
Yeah.
they were gonna be pulling XYZ. They couldn't get the run game going, and I mean we told our buddy Taylor that Texan secondary is no joke. I don't know outside of I mean
Definitely.
McConkey was playing well, but outside of the one like I guess you could say like blown coverage slash blown tackle from
Yeah, I
27.
don't even know what that was. It was a mix of both, I
Yeah,
guess. I don't.
but like I mean Quentin Johnson non-factor. Will Disley couldn't catch anything, and I don't know. Nobody else really showed up that game, and then the Texans D line just looked like the prime Rams mob squad with like Deacon Jones and everybody. Like they were, it was a sack party that game. So I I will
Yeah,
say
that was crazy.
got to give Texans credit. I think the offense looked pretty good. Mixon was finding his stride, especially against a good Chargers defense. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? I know you definitely enjoyed that game.
Oh, I listen. I enjoyed it. I think this is a weird game because it was a like football games, as we know, we kind of watch the sport all the time, whether it's college, NFL, whatever. Like it's a 4-quarter game, and that's really true because you can see the flips, um, like in this game, right? So I got the box score up. I just want to make sure I'm right here. Um, it was 6-0 late in the second quarter. The Texans could not move the ball. Mechie fumbled the first play of the game on a fine read from Stroud, but I mean, they had no rhythm all game, and they held the Chargers to 2 red zone field goals, and then it's like a 3rd and 12, bad snap. Stroud's running away, and by the way, this was supposed to be a halfback draw because they had Nico Collins mixing everyone out. It's supposed to be a halfback draw. They throw it to Hutchinson 35 yards down the field, and then that switched everything on a play that wasn't even supposed to be there. And as soon as that play happened, it felt like everything switched. It felt like when I watched that play as a fan, I was like, "Oh, this I think we're back." Just after that play because we had no spark whatsoever. And right after that play, Stroud has like a 25-yard run, and it feels like everything is just going our way. And that's kind of how I mean, because the Chargers were on a roll. They were running the ball really well early, and then they kind of got under pressure and they couldn't really recover. Herbert, 4 picks. I've been the Herbert defender from day one, and I gotta admit, this was I can't back him anymore. I just can't. I mean, he threw. I give a lot of credit to that Texans secondary. Like you said, drop ball by Disley right to Stingley's hands. Like, that's a bummer. I get it, but three really bad reads to a great secondary, but still, I mean, Herbert hasn't turned the ball over all season, and then he does that in a big game. The Chargers win by not turning the ball over and running the ball and leaning into their defense, and you can't do that when you do throw the picks. So I kind of lean meltdown to answer the question I kind of threw at you. I think that the Texans played great. They got a little lucky, I think, with momentum just on a blown play like that. But that's the game of football. Um, because that momentum could have continued very easily, and so I feel like it was more of a meltdown on the Chargers side. But there's a lot to like from that Texan game. I think they can compete in KC. I think they can keep it within a possession. For the bettors out there, I would strongly suggest taking Texans to cover, not to win, but just to cover. Um, just keep it in range in one possession. I think that's all Texan fans are asking for right now, and I think they will. But what do you do with the Chargers, man? I mean, you throw 4 picks in that spot. You've got a great coach, what you think is a great quarterback. I don't know. That was a very weird game in terms of momentum. Like, I feel like the Texans were a little more lucky than good, all things considered. But that defense is a problem. We've talked about it a lot. Um, it's not just the secondary. Hunter, Will Anderson, Christian Harris, the terror. I call him a terrorist because he's low key a bounty hitter. Alshire. That dude's different, man. Um, it's a problematic defense. I don't know how much it's going to slow down the Chiefs, but I mean, if they don't allow more than 20, it should be a close game. So we'll see. Um, any other thoughts on that game? I know I kind of took over there for a second, but
No,
it's a weird game.
I will say two things. One, when that Hutchinson pass happened, I literally said to my dad, I said, "Oh, watch this," and then he happened to throw like the game-changing ball to Hutchinson on that
Yeah.
play. I was like, "All right, look, he a prophet."
I mean, it's just a weird play. Like, it changed the whole game because I don't know if they were going to move the ball. Um, After that, if they didn't have that, they had no success at all. And then I also wonder if that opened up Slowick a little bit to start taking shots because they started taking shots real quick after that play. They started to get a little more aggressive. Um, and Slowick's, we've talked about it. He's still kind of on the hot seat. I don't know if I'm a huge believer right now, but it was a good sign to see that, especially against the Chargers defense. That's very formidable, for sure.
Yeah, but there's a reason there's a reason chargering is a term is all I'm gonna say. I don't think that there's much you
I
can
agree.
like they could sign T Higgins, they can fix the interior O line, draft a young running back, but I don't think their defense is necessarily made up of extreme talent. I think it's a lot of scheme.
Hmm.
I think Mentor's a pretty good.
It was talented, and I feel like that talent's getting a little older. And so I think that's where you're seeing some of the.
I guess I'll say top end talent. Like they found a lot of guys in this for the secondary in the fifth round. I think it was like Still and Cam Hart. They got those
Mhm.
guys are good, but like
Yeah.
yeah, but like Derwin James is getting up there. Max a free agent, and it doesn't sound like he wants to return. And then Bosa's a free agent, and I think this is Bosa's first like injury free roughly year, and it
Yeah, he's
feels like
so
since he
banged
got
up every
drafted.
year. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty much every year for him, which is a bummer.
Rams own LA though.
Rams own LA.
Nothing new.
Rams house,
Rams
baby.
house.
All right, that was a good amount on that game. We love it. We'll see what happens on Saturday tomorrow. Um, Really quick, anything you want to touch on with that Ravens Steelers game? I mean, on my end, I watched it. There wasn't. I don't think there's really too much to say. I mean, I don't think people saw the Steelers winning this game at all. Maybe a close game, from some people, but the Ravens were going to handle business here at home in the spot. Lamar did his thing, 175 through the air, 81 on the ground. Derrick Henry had 186 and two tutties. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything you want to add on that?
I guess not in relation to the game, but I think the Steelers should just blow it all up.
I've One of my good friends is a Steelers fan, and I think he's looking for that. I, I believe in Tomlin. I still do. I'm not
Do you like Mike
he's the
McCarthy?
winning coach.
Who do you
What?
think's a better coach, McCarthy or Tomlin?
Tomlin.
Why?
Winning consistency, and so is McCarthy. I mean I know, but I think Tomlin as a motivator is better than McCarthy. Maybe not as a scheme guy. I'd love to see him like work together possibly if they could if McCarthy would take that job.
Yeah, I only
I mean I would take because McCarthy's more of a offense guy, isn't he?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean you give McCarthy like the OC spot in Pittsburgh and you like draft they got to blow up the quarterback thing. They got to pivot off of. I mean, they have to do a haul on offense. I agree. I just think the way they coach defense and the way they bring in defense, like that matters. And they've done a really good job at that. So I don't love just like a complete rehaul, but they've got to change something. I'm with you there.
I only asked that because I saw on Twitter people were, they had a bunch of different takes about Tomlin, but I think in the same or it's either in the same amount of coaching years or since they both started coaching something like that, Mike McCarthy's had more success and everyone dogs him as kind of the like Aaron Rodgers merchant or whatever. But I don't know if it's time to start calling Mike Tomlin a Big Ben merchant at this point, just because their last play.
Yeah,
Think about
the only
their last playoff run where they went deep and who they played. They played the Dolphins, who had Matt Moore, and then they played somebody else the week after who was also like a backup slash like Kenny Pickett style garbage player. Like they haven't like the stat I saw on them was like in the last like they got blown out by the Browns a couple years ago with Baker. Um,
yeah,
they've been first round exits every year that they haven't made the playoffs, and I think they've only missed it twice. So they like meddle around like the low 20s picks, and then they waste the pick on like not very good players, like i.e. Kenny Pickett. But they've been
yeah,
outscored in the first quarter of playoff games. I read it was like 77-0.
that's crazy.
And every game that they've played, I think there's like three of the playoff games that they got bounced in the first round. They were blown out, or they got either like 35 or 40 put on their head. So it's not even like the defense is necessarily showing up in some of these games. But
Yeah,
I mean, you got
yeah,
Cam Hayward, who's like 46 years old. He's still a great player, but like I think they're leaning a little too much on the defense. I don't think TJ Watt's as good as he was. TJ washed, unfortunately. Um, and I can't really name anyone in the secondary besides Porter, who's like a real talent.
Minka, who's just
He's
low key
he
burnt toast now.
Yeah, so it's like I think they got to just get what they can for who they have on the team. I mean, Najee's probably going to walk. Wilson's going to walk. Fields might walk. Pickens might be traded.
Yeah. Here's my I want to go back to Tomlin McCarthy really quick and give you my kind of argument there, and then we'll go to the next game. But I think I value and respect the Steelers a lot, even through the present day kind of first round exit thing, because as a Texans fan, I've seen a lot of losing seasons. And the Steelers, you just know, aren't going to have that every single year. And like injuries, it doesn't matter. Bad quarterback play, it doesn't matter. TJ Watt gets hurt, doesn't matter. Like they just, in a tough division, they just continue to find a way to win. And I mean, football's a business and you got to be entertaining and you got to, like, winning matters. And so, yeah, they aren't winning Super Bowls anytime soon, I don't think, unfortunately for them. But like, they're formidable. They're doing their thing. I just think if you blow up the whole thing and you get rid of Tomlin and whatever, like, yeah, you might have a better upside, but man, your floor could drop really quick, really, really quick.
But as a, I mean, if you want your team to compete, wouldn't you want the volatility to be a thing only because, like, let's say they fired Tomlin, let's say they traded, or let's say they keep the defense around, and let's say they fire Tomlin, they find like, I don't know, like a Mike McCarthy, or they get like an older coach who's more offensive minded, and they lose, and I don't know, they go like 6-11 through the year, and you get a top 10 pick. I would much rather, as a fan, sit through a 6-11 season knowing that I have a top 10 pick the following year than I think most Steelers fans knew. I mean, I think towards the end of the year more so than the beginning because they did look pretty good. But like,
Yeah, they did look good there for a little bit.
yeah, but like, I think they do this every year. Like, they start off really hot, then they kind of slow down once it gets to like late November, early December, and then they get bounced in the first round, and then they have pick like 20 to 25 roughly, and they draft like Kenny Pickett, or they draft Terrell Edmonds, or they draft like, I mean, Najee Harris was cool,
Yeah,
but like he's gonna walk. Like they don't really. I'd much rather, as a fan, sit through like a. I mean, even comparing you to the like the Texans thing, right? Like
sure.
they had some rough years for sure, but those rough years landed them Stroud, Will Anderson. They got Nico Collins in the draft, drafted Tank Dell,
Yep. Stingley, of course, my
Stingley,
guy. Yeah.
Lassiter, uh,
Yeah.
Bullock, right? And then they're able to be a destination for Daniil Hunter. Like that probably wouldn't have
Yep.
happened 5 years ago. Getting like a premier edge rusher guy. That's why I'd rather
Yeah.
sit through a bad couple years to have the potential. Like, I mean, the Texans for the next 5 years have at least a really good basis to potentially, dethrone the Chiefs or beat Lamar, like all this type of stuff versus Pittsburgh just like,
Just kind of riding middle. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think my argument comes from like seeing 3 straight years of bad football and watching every single game.
that is
And
fair.
it's just like, like there's something to be said when your team gets a win on Sunday and you feel good about it. It may not be like it may be some ugly defensive football, whatever. Like obviously you're totally right in terms of like rebuilding for, you know, a Super Bowl, but teams in the NFL don't do that because winning matters so much. It's not like the
Yeah.
NBA where you can just throw out
Tank.
players and like, they want to win. NFL guys want to win so bad, and they want to, they're always playing for a contract. Like you don't see teams like give up really. Like yeah, you might fire a coach to set you up for failure or whatever, but like the players are always going to try.
Yeah.
Players always try to
That's
Um,
fair.
but all right, we'll pivot. We'll keep going with our recap here. The first game on Sunday was Broncos Bills. I'll start with this one just because I watched a lot of it and was a little surprised about the outcome. I knew the Bills would probably win. Not saying that was my hot take, to take the Broncos, but it looked really good early for the Broncos. Deep ball to Troy Franklin, that duck connection. You feel me? Um, and then that was it. That was it. That was literally it. I think that missed field goal at the end of the first half hurt the Broncos a lot, but I mean the Bills had control and looked really, really good against the top tier defense. Um, I think year one of the Sean Payton Bo experiment overall was a really good success. I mean, it was like the Texans last year, right? I mean, the Vegas over under wins line was at 5.5. You're not going to go from that to being a Super Bowl team. So making the playoffs, you take that as a win on the season, absolutely, and kind of rebuild from there. But I think it says more. I think it says more about the Bills. I think this team's legit. I'm taking. We'll talk about our picks, here in a little bit. But we got probably one of the games of the year on Sunday with them and the Ravens. It's gonna be wild. The two MVP candidates going head to head. I mean, from this Bills team that kind of looked bad early, losing to the Texans, losing to Baltimore, and now they've really, really found their stride. So, do you have any thoughts on the game itself?
I just think the Broncos, once they reload, I think you get a couple more guys on offense because I don't think Sutton has much help. Get an actual running game going. I think they'll be a lot
Yeah.
scarier in the future. Like you were saying, Texans thing when they ran into Baltimore last year, like it's just not. It wasn't expected, and it's not their year.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't catch too much of the game. I know everyone was glazing Josh Allen for some 4th and 1 play, and it's like stop it. But overall, I
It was
mean,
gross, but yeah.
I will say the Bills took care of the Broncos better than I probably anticipated because it could have been a closer
Yeah.
game, and I think that the defense showed up, albeit against a rookie quarterback who's had a good year. But yeah, I don't really have much from the game other than Bills. Bills could have played a lot worse. I'll say that. I think they showed up and played well, and they get rewarded
100%.
rewarded with a home game this Sunday. So we'll see.
Yeah, you gotta give them credit. I think that's my takeaway as well. Like the roster's better, and when you know your roster's better, and you got the better quarterback, and you're at home with that home field, like you just want to handle business, and that's what they did. I mean, they could have easily folded early in that game. Not folded, but been a little scared after the 7-0 lead for the Broncos, and they didn't allow one more point. So you got to give them credit there. It's a good home win. Now they host Baltimore, so it'll be interesting. Um, Eagles Packers. Jordan Love 3 picks. It was ugly. He had some weird injury, but I don't know your angle on this game, but I'm gonna kind of maybe throw a hot take out there. I know the Eagles won, but they didn't look good. I don't care what the score says. Jordan Love throws 3 picks, and the score was 22-10, but you got outgained by the Packers. Hurts 13 for 21 for 130. I mean, I get it. I know Philly's a ground game team with Saquon. I get it, but I don't know. I think the Eagles feel vulnerable to me. It feels like they kind of were coasting midway through the year. They played your Rams and had a big statement game. And then it feels like since then there's been the AJ Brown thing. They've kind of and Jalen Hurts had a concussion. They're going, but they're sputtering a little bit to me. What I don't know if you watched this game, but do you have anything on it?
I didn't get to watch a lot of it, but I know that obviously Watson was out, and then I think Reed and Dobbs both got hurt, and then they
Yep.
were on their third left guard in the game,
Yeah.
and they
Yep.
still had a shot to win it with 6 minutes left. I think they were down. I want to say
Yeah,
that
because they got that
they were down by 9, I think, because Philly got a
but
field goal after, and then Philly iced it with the Saquon run.
and also by the way, this was kind of a mini scheme thing, but I was texting a friend during this game, and we had bet the Packers, and the Packers didn't go for two when they scored, which I thought was interesting. I think it shifted a lot in this game because the Packers could have made it 11-16, and the Eagles ended up getting a field goal, making it 19-10, and it could have been 19-11, and that would have changed everything.
Yeah,
So I'm not exactly sure what happened there. I'm not gonna act like I'm a head coach, but that
and
seemed like an obvious play to me.
going off that Philly thing too, they got. I want to say that their only touchdown of the first half was because of that fumble at the beginning of the game, right? Like they scored in 2 minutes.
Correct. Yep.
I think if that doesn't happen, I mean, I will say I got to give Jordan Love the same hate that I gave Herbert about 10 minutes ago. I like
Yeah,
Jordan Love. Like, I thought last
I
year he
do
was pretty
too.
good, but he's definitely a Toyotathon merchant because Toyotathon ended right before this game,
Yeah,
and he just started blowing chunks everywhere in Philly. I know it doesn't help not having
yeah.
your top three receivers, but like, it also doesn't help throwing it to the opposite team. Um,
The thing about Love that's weird is he's always been a gunslinger.
yeah,
He's like Favre in that way, and like so. Am I gonna? I'm gonna fault him for three. If he throws, when you see a gunslinger like that, you want to see the two picks with two or three touchdowns.
yeah,
And when you don't have the touchdowns to go with them, then yeah, I mean it's not good. It's not going to work.
but Josh Jacobs is a demon. That dude is like real life demon. I think
That was
he could run behind a brick wall and still break away for like 4 or 5 yards. Like,
that was I think one of the most, like, I know people talked about him going to the Packers. It also felt like it wasn't talked about enough to me. Everyone talked about Saquon, and deservedly so.
and
He
Derek,
had a better year than Jacobs, 100%. Like, but Josh Jacobs was like really, really good this year, and people didn't like. I don't. I feel like he just didn't get talked about before or like really after. I don't know what that is, but
yeah, but yeah, I'll save my Philly thoughts for later.
okay, we can do that. We can do that. I didn't watch much of this game, so we can just touch on it. I don't know if you watched it, but Commanders win in Tampa on a game-winning field goal. Um, I was not surprised that Commanders won. Personally, I just think they're very underrated. I think Jalen's. I know we've kind of gone back and forth with the Jalen Daniels thing. I know he's not your guy. I don't. Or you're not a Jalen guy, right? Or
Jaden,
Jaden. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. Sorry, man.
he's definitely
Long
earned
day.
my
Yeah,
respect
he's
this
earned.
season.
Yeah, I think, and he's playing really well right now. I mean, 268 and 2 on the road in your first playoff game. Um, very solid. I was bummed I didn't get to watch this game. I really wanted to, but
I think
Commanders now take on Detroit, so we'll see how that goes. But I don't think the Commanders are as threatening as the Bucks. I just think that was a bad matchup for Tampa, personally. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if they can fight.
the Bucks
Mm.
had that game. I thought I watched. I think that was the only game that I watched in its entirety over the weekend, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you saw the Baker fumble on like the handoff. They ran like a motion, and he was trying to hand it off, and then he fumbled it, and then Bobby Wagner recovered it. Which, by the way, Bobby Wagner did not deserve All Pro. I'm sorry, like that's just name merchant value is like at an all time high in the NFL because they're and same with TJ Watt too. I hated that. That was terrible. I Nick Bonito
Yeah,
and
Laramie Tunsil got a Pro Bowl vote. Are we? Or he's in the Pro Bowl? Are we kidding me?
like
Oh, he's a
the all pro stuff, dude. It's like come on, like there's no way TJ Watt was better this year than Van Ginkel and Nick Bonito in like no
he.
universe.
Yeah. Anyway, we can. Yeah,
But I'm
we
sorry,
don't need
yeah.
to go down.
But I thought the Bucks because they got it. They got. I think the Commanders went for it on fourth down, and then they turned it over on downs, and the Bucks ran a play on first down and then fumbled it on second. I think if they were able to move the ball that drive, at least to the 50, if not past the 50, they would have won the game. And I I think the Bucks are low key a little underrated. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that game kind of. I thought that for sure the Commanders were gonna win bigger, like maybe by like a score or two, not a walk off field goal. Just because
Sure.
I think that Jaden Daniels is. I'd probably say he's better than Baker, and I wouldn't say that their defense, the Commanders' defense, is better than the Bucks. I think the Bucks have a pretty good D line, but I, I'd say the Bucks D line is better.
I would give the overall defense edge to the Commanders. I think for sure, and not just the Lattimore thing. It's not just like a name thing. I think. I mean, overall, the way the Commanders' defense plays is pretty solid. I feel like Tampa's can get a little inconsistent, a little too inconsistent for me. I mean, they gave up a lot of points to like the Panthers. Not the second game, but the first game they played them. I don't know. I just don't think I don't. It's they also had a lot of injuries. They were like the Lions. Winfield's been out quite a bit. Um,
The
who's
corners have
their
been banged up too.
the one corner? What their starting number one corner?
I think Jamel Dean went
Winfield.
out mid-game, and then
Yeah,
the guy who filled him in was terrible, and then the guy opposite. I think they had two guys. Number 27, I forget his name. It's like McMillan, not McMillan. Something like
it's the
that.
receiver.
He was out, but yeah, the 27 and Jamel Dean were their starting corners, and I think they both ended up not finishing the game in the fourth, which is when
Yeah,
Terry caught the last touchdown. Um,
and before that they were banged up. I mean, they
yeah,
just I feel like the defense has just not been healthy, and that's probably why I feel like they're inconsistent
that's fair.
because
Yeah,
they.
no, that's fair.
Um. All right. Well, let's get into this weekend's games. I'm sorry, we got one more game to hit on. I forgot we had a Monday game.
We did.
We did. We sure
We
did.
sure did.
I want a good amount of money off this one, by the way. I don't think I told you, but Rams money on. The Rams beat the Vikings in a neutral site game. Shout out to LA. 27-9 in Glendale. Um, I mean, this game kind of was dominated from the jump. This was not one of those four-quarter games where you see a flip. This was kind of the same way throughout. You were there in attendance, so I'll let you take the lead. What do you got?
Um, they they started off hot. They look really good. I like the pl they I like that they lined up for it on 4th and 1. Whether or not they were going to go for it, I guess is the whole thing. But they drew them off sides, got a fresh set of downs,
Are
and
you talking about that opening
yeah,
opening drive?
yeah.
Yeah,
I like the aggressiveness because I don't think I mean 3 points is cool, but I'd much rather if you're gonna it's a playoff game. And there was definitely a lot of Vikings fans there. I guess a lot of the Vikings fans reside in Arizona in the wintertime and they go back to Minnesota in the summer. That's what I was told.
sounds about right.
I was told consistently at the like the tailgate thing that they had, but Rams fans showed up. They started off hot 10-0. I think the Vikings marched down. They got three and then they called back the Stafford fumble, if you
Yeah.
will. Um, and I was right there in front of that. My seats were like right there where he recovered it. Which, by the way, that was a pass. I don't think Stafford throws the ball like that. Uh, if he
It
did,
was very close,
he knows
but
Puka's there.
yeah, I mean, you could have called the grounding maybe. I
Yeah,
could have seen that being thrown, but it was pretty clearly, I thought, a
it
pass
was like a
to me.
flick.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
his hand was going forward. Like you could throw the grounding for sure,
yeah.
but
But they called that back. I think it was kind of back and forth, and the Rams started to pick it up with the sacks. They didn't let Aaron Jones get loose, which they let Cam Akers get loose. So shout out former Ram Cam Akers, Texans legend as well.
yep, yep, yes
But
sir, yes sir.
the Kobe Durant sack and then the Kobe Durant pick on the same drive, I think was a momentum shift. And then as soon as they got the scoop and score with Verse off the Witherspoon sack, it
Yeah,
was like, okay, like we're low key locked in today. Um, the one thing that did suck was that they only scored three in the second half, which I was expecting them to get at least to 30, like at least a touchdown, maybe another field goal. I kind of wanted them to widen the gap because
yeah.
three-score game isn't a ton in the NFL, especially with another half to play. But by the time the fourth quarter rolled around, the game was low key over, and I don't know. Sam Darnold looked terrible. Um, he was holding on to the ball like it was a newborn child. I don't know what was going through his head, other than seeing Kobe Turner blow up the A gap and Verse come off the left side. But
First was a menace, man.
yeah,
Holy cow! I mean, the whole
shout
defense
out the
was a
D
menace.
line.
Yeah,
That was a fun game to
that was
be
a
there
beatdown.
for.
Yeah, that's peak in game, vibes when you're getting scoop and scores and like it's goaded.
Yeah,
That's what.
but
Um,
what about you? What did you think?
yeah, I mean, you kind of hit everything. I was going to talk about the second half offensively also. I mean, you wa- I think there's a fine line between chewing clock and also like trying to stay somewhat aggressive because it is the NFL and it's a four-quarter game. And it just felt like I think they were calling the right plays. I just think they just were off. It felt like to me. I remember seeing a couple incompletions from Stafford on third down. Vikings were playing desperate, maybe rush the passer a little better in the second half, whatever the case may be. Um, because I've seen like you go back to like that Chargers Jaguars game where they just didn't have a run game.
Yeah.
I don't think that was and they so therefore they were not calling the right plays and whatever to like chew the clock properly. I think the Rams overall, play calling wise, they did a good job. They just got to find a way to maintain that consistency because I think a lot of these Ram games you see like a half of insane football and then a half of like what's going on here, not just this game. I've seen it before. I mean, week 1 of the season, right? The Rams were not in that game at all. And then the second half, Stafford's, slinging it everywhere. So like just got to have that two half, game plan consistency, but um this is a scary team. We've been talking about it all year and especially in the NFC where you know that like I always go to three things to like evaluate who I think is going to win a game, right? You go home field, you go quarterback, you go coach. In the NFC, the quarterback's taken care of. In every single game, Stafford's the best quarterback in the NFC. We can get into the AFC debates and where you list him, whatever, but in the NFC, he's the best quarterback. So in that case, I mean, you already have one of those check boxes in every single game. And probably too with McVay at coach. You can, go back and forth across, all the teams, right? But with some bias, we both take McVay, you know, in in those debates, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of the game, right? I watched the whole thing like you did. Um, it was really just that first half, and the Vikings could not do enough. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Darnold. I think he's going to get a deal. I think they were talking about it on some of the Fox Sports shows. Um, he was probably getting 45, 50 million a year. And now he's looking at like a 1 year rental again, probably.
Pittsburgh
Which is
will
a bummer.
Pittsburgh will give him 3 years. That's the type of team that they are.
I think Darnold and what I said since mid-year, I think we talked about it on here. I think Darnold should get the Baker treatment.
Yeah.
Like a 3 year, 30 million a year deal. So you're paying the guy the money he probably deserves. He just had a heck of a year, but at the same time you're not breaking the bank.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
it's a good compromise. I mean, I think if I was in Darnold's position, I think I would take that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you going to risk another 1 year deal again and possibly throw that guaranteed money off the table. You know,
Especially not if he doesn't go to a team with the Shanahan tree scheme.
yeah.
I don't like it's no coincidence that his best I mean that he was terrible on the Jets. Panthers didn't really do much with him, and then he was like decent with the Niners when he did play, right? And
Yeah, he's
that's
fine.
fine. And then this year, Kevin
Yeah.
O'Connell from the McVay tree, from the Shanahan tree, looked like the Sam Darnold who was supposed to come out of USC. But
Yeah.
uh, I will say, with the one thing with the Rams that upsets me so much was that, and I guess this is a good thing too, but McVay, when he first came onto the scene, and I think until the year that they won the Super Bowl, they would always be a really hot first half team. And the last, I want to say, like season and a half, going back to like, I want to say the Browns game last season, or maybe a little bit earlier than that, when they started the win streak off the 3-6 start.
Yeah.
They've like been a much better second half team, and the first halves, at least this season, have been atrocious. Like you were saying,
Yeah.
Detroit, that looked terrible. And then the games kind of in the back half of the season too, they'll start off a little bit slow and then they'll pick it up. And so it's a weird dynamic to see that. But now that they're a first half team, it looks like again in the playoffs, that's like the old Rams, if you
You would
will.
rather have, at least I think you'd rather have that first half explosion
Yeah.
because then you have them at least, right?
Yeah.
It's good to be like the Chiefs and be a good comeback team. Obviously, I mean, the fourth quarter matters the most,
Yeah.
arguably, right? But you want to have momentum. You want to have yeah, you don't want to be climbing back from behind every game. So, I mean, it was good to see. You want to see the consistency, but are you going to take that crazy start? For sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
every single. All right. Well, we hit on the recap very well. Got 40 minutes of recap, so that was good. That was good content. We're gonna not fly through. We'll talk about our teams a little bit, but um, we got 4 games to talk about in terms of the divisional round. So, the first game up, 24 hours from now, man. Texans Chiefs. Um, I'll start with this one and let you, kind of come in. The spread's 8.5, I think. I like the Texans to cover, bias aside there. The Chiefs have been in one-score games all year. I don't think that's necessarily just going to change, especially in a playoff game. I believe in the Chiefs a lot. I mean, I'm pretty confident they're going to take the Super Bowl this year, but you never know. You never know. It's the NFL. Anyone can win in a given week. I do. That being said, though, I think people are going to be surprised to see how this defense plays. I think D'Amico is a really good motivator. We saw it both playoff games, both wild card games, I should say, this year and last year, both underdogs at home. Both times the defense gets a pick six. Both times turnovers are flying everywhere. Like, I know that Baltimore game in the divisional round last year wasn't great, but Stroud was a rookie. This team's just a little bit older. Stingley's playing really well. Will Anderson, really underrated year, by the way. He's playing well. Um, and that game last year was close at halftime. So I don't know. I feel really confident that they're going to compete and at least give the Chiefs a run for their money. I'm not going to be bold and say Texans win outright or anything like that, but I think with the way the Texans are built and a couple of the injuries to the Chiefs O line, like Creed Humphrey's now playing again for him,
Is he not playing?
right? That was or who did they just pick up? That was like they just picked up a guy as a free agent who had played for him in the
Oh,
past.
it
Hold
was
on,
a black dude. Humphreys, the left tackle.
maybe that's yeah, yeah. Okay, yes, yes. So he looked rough like week 17. So I just think their O line's vulnerable, and I think that's where the Texans can really make their mark. I mean, they ate the Chargers alive with 2 studs at left tackle and right tackle. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I feel confident. I'm thinking like a 21-16, maybe 20-16 Chiefs win. That's my prediction. What do you think?
I think I think the Texans have a legit shot just based on that D line and the defense itself. I know that I think Hollywood Brown played against the Texans the last time, or maybe he was like really close to returning.
I think he got his first action in that. He had like 2 catches for like 30 yards.
But now
I
that
mean,
they
it wasn't
got
too.
a full offense, it's definitely a different Chiefs team. They got a dual running back combo. Obviously got Kelsey. I know they did move Joe Tooney, I think is how you say it. They moved him from guard to tackle when Humphreys went out, and then
Yeah.
they like I mean the right tackle is still not good, I don't think. So there's that. But I think if they can get pressure on Mahomes, I don't think he runs as much as he did earlier in his year, and not like he was a mobile quarterback, but he's able to move a lot in the pocket, manipulate stuff, and then roll out. I think if they can contain him and get to him, I think the game is a lot closer. I think my fear is the Chiefs' defense with Spagnola game planning for 2 weeks now and having tape on them already, and them not having Dell or Diggs is a big factor. And I think
Yeah.
if they limit Mixon to under 100 yards, like if they can keep him at like 75 yards and less than 4 yards a carry, um, I think it might be a long day for the Texans offense. But if the Texans can start hot, I don't think anyone can guard Nico Collins. And they'll need
McDuffie's pretty solid.
McDuffie's
I gotta give.
no, yeah. I McDuffie's nice, but I think if they can start hot and get up with a lead, I think that'll benefit them a lot. And I think that the defense is a lot better than it has been probably ever. I don't really I mean, obviously the JJ Watt days were pretty nice, but this defense is like top to bottom loaded.
Yeah, it's really funny you bring up that point because I kind of had a thought midway through, and I wanted to touch on it before we go to the next game. I think the thing to look out for in this game is what you said is that hot start because typically these teams off of a bye. Now I know it's the Chiefs. I'm definitely not going to underrate them by any means at all.
Yeah.
But would it shock me to see them down early? Like not at all.
Yeah.
I could see the Texans being up 10-0 in the first quarter just because team off of bye, they rested guys in week 18. Then you have another week off. Like we've seen this time and time again with the bye teams. Again, it's Andy Reid. I'm sure they're going to be well prepared, but it's just something to look out for. I would definitely like in that spot. I would not be confident as a Texans fan. You know, it could be 30-0. Would not care. But you know, it's. I think it's pretty likely that we see at least like an early Texans lead. I don't know how much it could be, but just the slow start. You know, the Texans. I like winning the wild card versus a bye because you have some momentum. Yeah, like Mixon's a little banged up right now. Like he's gonna play, but he's banged up. That's not what you want. But I mean, you have that taste of playoff football, and I think in the NFL that means a lot. That means a lot. So we'll see. I think we both think it's going to be competitive.
They'll cover at
They'll
least.
cover. I feel pretty confident about the cover.
Yeah.
I'm going to look up the spread on this game real quick, but Commanders
It was
Lions.
like 10.
Um, is it really?
I think it
Let me
was
see.
9.5 when it opened.
Yeah, it's 9.5 now, is what I see. So
Okay.
Detroit favored by 9.5. I don't think these two have matched up this year, so
No.
that's interesting. Um, what are you looking for in this game? What do you see happening?
Yeah, Detroit's gonna kill them. Just flat out, they're gonna kill them only because we were talking about the Commanders versus the Bucks. Bucky Irving was having some pretty good runs against them, and the Commanders' run defense is last in the league um, in a lot of things, I'm pretty sure, but overall, they're the worst. And this Lions team has, you could argue, easily the best offensive line. I think Philly's probably got the best offensive line, but I mean, running behind, what's that dude's name? Sewell? Panay?
Oh, Penny Sewell.
Yeah, running behind him and his boys, and especially now that they have Montgomery
Go
back
Ducks,
this
by the
week,
way. Sorry.
go Ducks. They
Yeah.
get Montgomery back. I don't think Jared Goff will have to throw a pass this game, and they would still
He,
win.
he he might have like 120 yards through the air.
He's gonna have the
On
Jalen
like
Hurts special.
yeah. I think that's a pretty good rundown.
But Jaden Daniels versus that second string defense, they could score some points.
Yeah, I think I kind of lean Lions handle business here. I think they're going to have momentum. I think that crowd's going to be fired up. Um, I want to see the Commanders compete so bad. I really do, just to make it fun because I like JD5. But the Lions are going to be too much in this spot. Um, Even against a banged up defense, I've seen the highs and lows of Scary Terry, and like I don't know. I can't guarantee he's going to be open tomorrow. I don't know.
Their secondary
Like
is healthy for the most, or I guess not for the most part, but they have both their safeties, and I don't know if Arnold is going to play. It wouldn't matter anyway because Arnold's not very good as of this year. But Amik Robertson locked down Justin Jefferson in Week 18, so it's like if you did that to
yeah,
Jefferson, I
It's true. It was Darnold at the helm, but
yeah.
still,
School.
Um, and okay, so next game we got. So these are the Sunday games. We start. Wow,
Yeah.
it's a weird time to play. That's 12 your time. That's weird.
Yeah.
Um, Rams at Philly. I was looking at this. I think the spread is 6. Is that right? Eagles minus 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll start with you here. These are your boys. So, how are you feeling?
First off, like you said about the Texans always getting the Saturday time slot on the wild card games, Rams need to stop getting the freaking Monday night wild card slots because they played the Cardinals there
Yeah.
3 years ago ish, and now they played the Vikings, so they get 1 day less of rest compared to the Eagles, and they got to travel to the East Coast, and they got to practice in LA with all this stuff going on right now. So it's kind of like, thanks NFL. Um, I don't expect the Rams win. I know a lot of people are kind of picking the Rams to pull off an upset. I don't think like you referenced them the Eagles being like an anaconda team.
Yeah.
I think the offensive line is like way too much even for this defensive line. I think the only way to beat them is going to be rushing. You got to rush at least five, and I think um, Bobby Brown's going to have a Warren Sapp like career game. And I don't know if that's going to happen, or they're going to have to use Gallimore to plug up the middle, and then you'll still have Turner and Fisk, and then Verse and Young on the
Yeah.
outside. That's the only way I can see them winning is if they have five down linemen every single play. And even then, I'd take Philadelphia's O line over roughly any five-man front, probably in the league. And I think the Rams have like at least a top 10 defensive line, I would say. I
Yeah.
think that's a pretty fair
Defensive
assessment.
line wise and front seven, yeah, they're way up there.
But I mean, Jalen Hurts can throw two picks tomorrow or two picks on Sunday, and Saquon can still rush for 200 yards and three touchdowns, and the game would be very. I mean, that's just what happened back in November when they smoked the Rams. The Rams got a garbage time touchdown. It should have been 37-13.
Yeah, I mean it
Um,
was all run game, I felt like.
yeah, and I don't think it's going to change, especially it being a snow game. That doesn't help the Rams like in the
It's a
slightest
snow
bit.
game.
Yeah,
Wow. That's
so
crazy.
I,
Okay.
I don't think the Rams are going to win. I think there's a chance that they cover, but I think like the last game they ran out of gas coming out of half. I literally watched Saquon just jog down the sideline for 75 yards to open up the second half, and I was like, okay, like this game's over now, and it was
Yeah.
14 minutes left in the third quarter, and the game's over. Like the Rams never play Philly well, um, like ever. I think the last time they beat him was in 2020, and they had Carson Wentz's corpse playing quarterback still.
Yeah.
So I don't I don't put a lot of weight into um, that win 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't think that the Rams are going to be able to do it this week. I think their only shot is to throw the ball. I don't think they're going to be able to run on Philly because I think Philly's going to be expecting it. But yeah, I'm not super confident, especially with everyone picking the Rams. I don't know where this is coming from. I know,
Yeah.
like we said, Philly looked bad last week, even when they won. Hurts, I don't know if he was still like feeling concussion symptoms, but I mean, the Packers, I think, are a pretty comparable team to the Rams. Like they have roughly pretty good quarterback play most of the time. They have a lot of different weapons, a good running back, a solid O line, and a really young defense that, flies to the ball. But even then, the Packers didn't look amazing either. I mean, Philly didn't look. I don't know. I just don't think the Rams are going to pull this one off. I think their run of not luck, but like their run of whatever this is, I think is coming to a close. Especially if it wasn't a snow game, you'd be hearing a whole different monologue right now.
Yeah.
Uh, I think Stafford
Is
would
this supposed to be
slice them
like
through the
heavy,
air.
heavy snow? Like what kind of snow game are we talking? Do you know?
I think they said like 2 to 3 inches.
Okay. So not like
So not like terrible,
yeah.
but weather will be a factor. And the Rams put up a stinker in the cold against the Jets of all teams. And if that's any precursor, it's like I don't know if I even want to watch. But I don't know what your take is as an outsider, kind of.
I'm I'm very conflicted. I'll honestly because my bias is like I'm Rams all day, and I'm going to be rooting for the Rams, of course, as you know. But on one hand, my neutral side is telling me like the Eagles just looked really bad and the Rams just looked really good, and you roll with the really good team in that spot. And another is like the Sunday night football game where the Rams just got killed at home. Like, I mean, it's the same team, you know? But the defense is playing a lot better now. That's the only thing that's really changed. Is like
Hmm.
the Vikings offense has been killing teams all year. Besides week 18 in Detroit, they've been killing everybody in terms of offense at least. And so I I'm still going Rams to cover. I think you go back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Like to pick a game, you got quarterback, coach, home field. The Eagles do have the home field, but coach and QB is the Rams, and it's not very close. Otherwise, on the roster, like, yeah, I'm definitely going Philly. Like the GM spot, Philly, you know? But I think the Rams have a shot. It's hard because of how they lost that Sunday night game. It wasn't just that they lost, it was that they got killed and that the run game was just really, really good for Philly. And not just Saquon either. It was like the Jalen Hurts like bootlegs on like third down that just killed all momentum for the Rams. That happened probably like three times in that game, in that Sunday night game. So I think I do like the Rams in this spot. I'm not as confident as I was for them against Minnesota, but it's a little different from the Texan game because I could see the scenario where the Rams do get blown out. I don't see that at all in the Texan game. I do see that possibility in this game, but again, QB and coach, I'm going to lean on that and kind of trust my gut there. So I think the Rams have a shot. I do.
Les Snead is better than Howie Roseman as a GM. We're
No
not going to play this.
way. No way, man.
Look at Howie Roseman's drafts. Okay, let me just divulge here. Remember the Ramsey trade?
Of course. Oh, great. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Who was the other GM that was trying to get him?
Was it Howie?
Howie Roseman, right? Howie Roseman has not assembled a great team. He drafted Hurts in the second round. He takes very obvious good players. Like he got Jalen Carter at 9 or 8, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't hard to see. It wasn't hard to see that Quinyon Mitchell was going to be a good corner. Cooper DeJean, same thing. Like the tape is there. It's not like he's drafting anybody late in the rounds, and you're like, wow. Like a lot of the team is first round talent. The Rams are made up of
Sure.
fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh rounders that nobody else, including the Eagles, passed on in the earlier rounds, and they've turned what was probably going to be a really bad team after the Super Bowl year, losing like a bunch of guys, into Kobe Turner, Fisk, Byron Young, Quentin Lake, Omar Spates. Who else is there? Good Lord. They signed Witherspoon, and none of those guys were higher than outside of Fisk were a third round pick. Like Howie Roseman's drafts
Yeah.
outside of the first round, mid, so mid.
The
Kobe
argument
Dean,
is the argument's fair, but it's still a team with first round talent everywhere, and it's like insane. Like, I mean, the AJ Brown trade.
yeah, like you knew AJ Brown was a top 15 receiver at the time, top 10 probably, and now he's obviously a top 5 guy, I would say. But I think he I think he gets a lot of credit for hitting on obvious picks. Like Devontae Smith was a Heisman winner and they got him. Like okay, like obviously he's going to be good. They got Saquon, like obviously he's going to be good behind the O line. And they've had Lane Johnson for all these years, Mailata. I think the only dude that they really hit on as a GM, and even then he was with the Jets, was Becton. Like Zach
Yeah.
Bond, I guess too. You could throw Zach Bond in there being a free agent signing. Um, but every other dude on this team is like a first or second round pick. That was like a very, like he's very good at acquiring talent. I don't think he's very good at assessing talent, and I think that's where the Rams slash Snead are like way better
Oh,
at.
I can be on board with that just because
Puka was a fifth rounder. Kyron was a fifth rounder.
yeah, like the steal picks that the Rams get are better than the Eagles ones. But I think the key, you said it well. I think they acquire talent year after year that is like top end. However they do it. I mean,
Yeah,
like their roster to me is like the best in football right now. If they could get
easily.
quarterback and coach figured out, like it would be by far the best. But right now it's just the best.
But he also paid running back man 50 million a year, and I don't think anyone would give him that deal.
It's just hard
Uh,
because they had won or not. I'm sorry, not won a Super Bowl, but he had looked. They went to the Super Bowl and he looked really good in that game. That was one of the best games of his career.
that was probably the best because every other playoff game he's played in, I don't think he's thrown for more than like 220.
Yeah, that was insane. I mean,
But
so I don't know.
I'll take
I hear
I'll
you
take the
though.
guy who works with limited resources over the guy who always has money to spend and always has. I mean, obviously that's on the Rams for trading the first round picks, but it got him a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But
No,
if
I'm
you're
saying
able
not
to
the
complete a
Rams.
full draft class over what's his name, the DUI guy, Carter,
Yeah.
over the manslaughter charge. But yeah, I'm not letting Lesney go out. Sorry to Howie Roseman.
Oh, it's close. I mean, I would take Howie, but it's close for sure. There's no debate. It's close. Snead's
There's no
probably
debate.
number two.
Snead better. If just think about if Philly had Snead, every single round would be loaded.
And then
Howie Roseman hits on.
imagine the Rams had Howie, Jalen Hurts, man.
I would have killed myself.
Um, Now we're gonna go to two good quarterbacks.
Hey,
So for a change, get off the
there we
Jalen
go.
Hurts wave. The game of the week, and this could be one of the games of the year. Ravens at Bills. I know you're a Lamar guy, so I'm sure your bias is all over this pick. But let's hear your pick. And let me be
The
clear.
MVP will win this game. Um, and I only say that because I know that you watched the Bills and Rams game, but I don't know if this is controversial, but I'm going to lay this opinion out there. I don't think Josh Allen's better than Joe Burrow,
Mhm.
like point blank period. I would take Joe Burrow over Josh Allen in like a millisecond.
I thought you weren't a Burrow guy. I
I'm
am a
not.
Burrow guy, but
I think Burrow's just a better overall player. This is kind of off topic a little bit, but I, outside of a 4 week run for Josh Allen, which included the Rams defense, the Lions second string defense, and I want to say there was another team on the back end of that 3 game stretch. They haven't looked amazing on offense, and everyone,
I haven't.
I even was picking Josh Allen as the MVP after that Rams game because that was absurd.
Yeah.
MVP is easily Lamar's. Like I don't think there's a debate. It should be
He's
Lamar.
having the better to me, and I think we both agree on this. He's having the better season overall.
Lamar.
Lamar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the whole. I
Passing,
mean,
everything.
yeah, every single significant stat Lamar is better at, or at least higher in the quantitative measure. But the one thing that I think gets overblown with the Bills team is I don't think their defense is very good. Like I think they have
They
a really
play
good
well, but they play fine, but their personnel is not good for sure.
I don't think that their run defense. I'm sure it's like good on in advanced metrics and overall. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry and Lamar is Lamar. That's the greatest rushing duo we've ever seen in a
Yeah,
backfield
low-key.
together. Like easy money, I would take them over anybody. And I don't think people are quite understanding of how crazy it is that Lamar's doing this with basically wide receiver twos and threes. Like
And
Zay
Zay's been
Flowers
kind
is
of in and out, but I think he's playing. He's playing though.
allegedly, but like even then,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Zay Flowers is a number one receiver. I think he's like a 2A or like a 1B to like
Yeah.
a different guy. Um, but I think that they thrashed the Bills defense. I don't think the Bills defense is as good as people make it out to be. And then going back to my Ravens take before the Texans game, that Ravens defense is disgusting. Like,
I will give him credit because we talked about it on the pod also. I was very skeptical of that Ravens defense, but they really have turned it around. They're playing well now. They were not early in the year, but they're playing well.
yeah, ever since they dropped Cal Hamilton to deep safety, it's
Yep.
They have the best like I don't know what you would call it, but Matabike, Roquan, Kyle Hamilton, that's the best like in out in trio in the league by like a wide margin. They have the best safety, best linebacker, and probably a top 10-ish, if not higher, interior guy.
Yeah.
Kyle Van Noy is a monster. Oweh's a monster. Marlon Humphrey looks like prime Richard Sherman this year for whatever reason.
Yeah, he's
Um,
got it together. And
yeah,
it didn't look
Nate
like that.
Wiggins,
Yeah, Nate Wiggins been a dog.
Washington. I love the Ravens. I like love the Ravens.
Yeah.
I think that they win by 2 scores.
So let me give you a little stories, maybe a little bit exaggerated, but my favorite bet all year, and I knew it was going to be my favorite bet all year, was it was Sunday Night Football. I think week 3. It was Bills Ravens, and I said, please, 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 please. It was the biggest NFL bet I've placed all year. Was Ravens to cover, Ravens to cover, and that it was like -2.5. They won by like 28. I mean, and I think the Bills are. I think they're playing really well right now. I don't want to dismiss that by any means. I just think the Ravens are just too talented, man. I mean, I watched that Christmas Day Texan game, and it's just like just have guys everywhere right now. And with the way the defense is playing and that rushing attack of Derrick Henry and Lamar, I mean, what are you supposed to do? And on top of that, by the way, Lamar's having one of the best, I don't want to say passing seasons ever as a whole, because it's not like the Tom Brady like 50, and like the Peyton Manning, Drew Brees crazy yards, but like he's really efficient. He has not thrown picks this year. What is it, like 3 picks he's thrown? Maybe
Four, and they
4?
four, and they put together a compilation of all the picks. One was off of Andrew's hands. One was stolen from Rashad Bateman. One was stolen from
Yeah.
Justice Hill. Like I,
Yeah, I'm looking
I
at
don't.
it right now. I mean,
None
uh,
of the picks were his fault, and he has the lowest turnover worthy percentage rate I think in the NFL as the quarterback.
only really Herbert was better, and I'm looking at like the
Oh yeah,
interceptions now. Only Herbert was really better, but the difference there was Herbert wasn't really throwing the ball down the field. You'd see Lamar throw the ball down the field, and he threw what? I was just looking at it. 41 touchdowns. Throw
something like that.
41
Yeah,
passing touchdowns, which is insane. The only Burrow had more with 43, but Burrow had 9 picks and was playing in shootouts all year. So
yeah. And he's got Jamar and Higgins.
yeah, exactly. So I'm with you, and I'm maybe not as I don't have a stake in the Ravens. I don't. I just think they're gonna win by 14 plus. I just think Lamar's playing really well. I do for sure proceed with caution though, because we are, and I'm being fair here. I think you're gonna agree with me, but we have the playoff Lamar kind of like
Yeah,
we got to have a breakthrough. I think he's
yeah.
going to break through, but I got to see this game play out. Like until I start, really giving him the credit. Because we had that game, Kansas City game last year. They were at home in the AFC Championship, and Lamar just, I mean, that was part game plan, part Lamar, but whatever, however you want to put it, he disappeared. And you're going on the road for this game. You can't disappear here. Like, I'm not worried about King Henry disappearing. I think he'll have his 110, but Lamar's got to play well. It's got to be a statement for him, and obviously they got to win. So, do you
If
think the playoff thing's gone yet?
I think they got to beat a team that's not I think the only did they beat the Chargers? I think Lamar only has two playoff wins, and I think it's Texans, and then I think it was the Chargers
He
a while
lost to the
ago.
Chargers, I think, right? Or did they win that game?
Oh, maybe they won that game.
I think the Chargers won that game.
Seriously, Jesus.
I think Lamar's only playoff wins are Texans and here I'll pull this up real quick. It just won't take me long.
Because I know that they lost to the Titans, I want to say, in the playoffs one year.
Hang on. So oh
They
yeah,
lose to.
so 2022 to 2023 he was out. So, whatever.
Hmm.
Um and then the year before, well, he's been low key like banged up. Um what was the other one? I don't think it was that Charger game though. I think was it like Titans? No, they lost to the Titans. They got killed. Anyway. Yeah,
Oh, he's
I
got.
what were you gonna say?
So he has beat the Titans in 2021. Um,
Okay,
so he has
that
three
was
playoff wins now with the Steelers win, the Texans win from last year, and then 3 years before last year. So four years
yep.
ago they beat the Titans. Um, and he didn't. I guess he didn't have it. It wasn't an amazing game, I'll tell you that.
I mean, it's just not enough.
Oh, okay, he lost to the Chargers in 2019. He lost to the Titans the year before he beat them, and then after they beat the Titans, um, in 21 they lost to the Bills.
Yep, that's right. That's
So,
right. I
geez
think he
Louise.
makes a statement game. I really do. I think I think it's gonna be good.
As long as Todd Monken doesn't open the game with a shotgun pass, I, I will have words for Todd Monken if he does what he did against the Chiefs last year, where it's just pass, pass, pass. It's like
Yeah,
Derrick Henry.
I think I get it. It's a play calling's hard because everything comes back to you, right? But you got to rely on Derrick Henry early and settle Lamar in, and I think you still want to be aggressive. I don't think you want to hand it off 30 times.
No,
I think there's kind of a balance, but you can't you're definitely not passing it 35 times. Probably not. I don't know.
I hope not.
Yeah. Um, we'll see. I'm confident though. I'm with you. I think the Ravens should win this, and I think they'll win it by multiple scores. So,
Before we move off to college football,
yep,
since we've taken some time, I guess, in between episodes,
yep.
um, just right now, Super Bowl. Who's gonna make the Super Bowl? Who's gonna win it? Just so we have it on record, I
Lost.
guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Chiefs and see, this is the NFC is weird to me right now because I for whatever reason I don't think it's the Lions. I really don't. I think it's the winner of Eagles Rams. And I'm pretty biased against the Eagles for sure because I don't like the coach, but they've been playing well overall. And I've given them credit over the last month. I think I think we're going to get a Chiefs Eagles rematch. And I think the Chiefs take it and get the three-peat. I think people are going to be surprised. I think the Texans will get off to a hot start in the game tomorrow, but I think that second half. the Chiefs are going to look really good, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people, especially like offensively.
Yeah.
That's my mini prediction, and then I think the Chiefs kind of coast that second half and on. Um, I think they beat soundly Ravens or Bills. Not soundly. They always play in one possession games, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to be like a game winning drive for Lamar or something. I don't think so.
Nah, yeah, I agree. I got I got Chiefs Lions. I think the Lions offense is too strong for just about
Yeah.
anybody, especially if they play the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles are going to be ready for that, but I will say Vic Fangio owns McVay and he owns Jared Goff. So that's like the other thing too. So I would say Chiefs Lions, but if the Rams somehow pull this one out from under against Philly, I think they beat the Lions, and I think it'll be Rams Chiefs if the Rams are able to beat Philly.
Yeah,
So I'm
I
kind of on
think
I'm on board with what you said about the winner of this game, except for I don't think it'll be the Eagles. So I guess I'm half on board, half not.
yeah, I think whoever wins it is going to the Super Bowl. It's not the
Yeah.
Lions. I think you got to have a really strong defense in playoff time. And the Lions defense is just not strong right now. Like I think with the way the Rams just looked, if they were to somehow beat Philly and play the Lions, I mean that's trouble. That's trouble. Cuz and that the Lions offense is obviously really with the way the Rams defense is playing.
I don't have an answer
Oh,
for that.
see, crazy. Sorry.
He
Um,
doesn't even know either.
How to re-
sorry.
I'm sorry.
My Siri started going nuts. I don't know if you heard me or not. Um,
No, yeah, she didn't have an answer for why the Rams defense is so good.
yep. I don't either. I think all the Rams have to do is limit the Lions to under 30 in that matchup. Because I think the Rams would get like 35. I really do. So, I don't know.
I I can see that. The Rams have played them. I mean, the wild card game last year, they lost by a point and they were 0-3 in the red zone. And
Yep.
then this year, they took them to overtime and they got walked down at the end of I think they just ran the ball, the Lions did. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that overtime touchdown. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that was
Oh,
killer, dude.
cool. Um, so let's I don't want to make it a super long episode. We've gone on. But we should hit on college football just a little bit. Um, I'll kind of give my thoughts on everything, and then I'll let you kind of come in, say what you got. I think the 12 team playoff, I think overall, I'm going to give it like a B minus. I think entertainment value, I think we got a lot of really fun games. Penn State Notre Dame was great. Obviously, the Ohio State Texas game was great. Um, the Arizona State Texas game, that was really fun. Like we got some really quality like entertainment value out of the 12 team playoff, but in terms of like football and logistics, yeah, they got to change. It's like a F grade because the fact that you got Notre Dame in the championship, that just with the more teams you let in, the more variety you get, and when you have bad seating, like I don't know. I think they just came out today and said they weren't going to change like format, and it's like I'm a salty Ducks fan. I get it, but just take a look at the bottom half of that bracket. You had Notre Dame and Penn State as your two best teams down there, and then the other side was Texas Ohio State, which was I think the national championship. Like I think this game is going to be like a TCU Georgia rerun, and maybe that's being disrespectful, but I don't know, man. I just I don't think Notre Dame's really going to hang with Ohio State at all. Like I'm going to take. I think the spread's 9.5. So overall, I think the playoff was really fun, but I think they got to make some pretty drastic seeding changes and format changes because you had all four of the bye teams out right away. You can't do that. It's just not a good look. So, do you have anything there?
I think the seeding need. I agree with the seeding needs to change, but I also think that the teams that had the bye losing. I don't know if it's more so on the seeding necessarily. I mean, I will say Oregon having to play Ohio State is like that's terrible. Um,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
didn't. Yeah, that was terrible. But
I could talk about that all day, but I'm not. I mean, they got matched up and lost to a better team, so it is what it is.
I think if they change the seeding to favor the one seed, um, a little bit more because I mean, if you go undefeated in the college football season, I think that you gain an advantage, especially beating Ohio State earlier in the season.
Yeah,
I know it was a close game, but like still won the game.
yeah.
And like you said, Texas and Ohio State was probably the national championship. I don't I don't mind seeing Notre Dame make it all the way. I just don't like Notre Dame, the school.
I mean, they don't. My biggest problem is they don't like play in a conference. So
Yeah, that too.
they you get a cakewalk and you get essentially a free buy. Like I know they didn't. And wait, did they get the 5 seed? No, they didn't.
No.
They didn't get the 5 seed, but because they didn't play in a conference, they had like the ultimate path to the 5 seed. Does that make sense? And so because they have the ultimate path, I'm kind of giving them, I just I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, well, they played Indiana, who is like, and then they played, oh God, who was it? Oh, Georgia. I mean, I will say they beat Georgia. That's not
Yeah, no, I
like
mean
Notre
they
Dame's
played.
fault.
Listen, I don't think Notre Dame is like terrible. I just think it's a bad matchup against Ohio State, and I just think I don't know.
I think,
I think it's just two different tiers. You never want to see two different tiers in a national championship. Like when we had, I love my Mountain West basketball, but when we had SDSU UConn, that one year, like
yeah,
it's
that was
just two
bad.
tiers. I mean, it's just how the bracket crumbled, but that one's different because you had a 64 team bracket. That's what makes March
Yeah.
Madness so great is you have all the different. But when it's football, you want the two best teams at the end, and I think 12 teams, you just get too much variety, I think. I don't know.
And I like the 12 team because I think it opens it up for a team like Notre Dame wouldn't have made it obviously if it was a four team
Yeah.
thing. I just don't think like Boise State getting a bye because they won their conference. I think it should just be you get into the playoff like an automatic bid, but I think that the seeding it shouldn't be that because like Arizona State held their own against Texas, but obviously Texas was the better team and ultimately.
Yeah, and
But like,
everyone knows that. Like no
yeah,
one's gonna fight about that.
but like realistically, like it should have been Oregon. Like I like the top two, Oregon and Georgia. I totally understand those two.
Yeah.
But then like the three and the four should have been like Texas is in there, Ohio State's in there. Um, I mean, I wouldn't say Arizona State was a top four seed. You can make an argument that maybe Penn State was a top like fringe could have been the four seed, but like
Yeah. I
I,
mean, they were in the Big Ten championship. They
yeah,
competed.
but
Yeah.
I like the 12 team playoff because it's just more football, like you said, more variety.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the winning the conference should win you a top four seed. But to wrap it up, Ohio State by like 100
Yeah.
this week on Monday. Yeah,
I think
that's
it's going to be a TCU Georgia rerun. I really do, but I think that's
Jeremiah Smith might have 500.
he might, dude.
Yeah,
I think the problem, and I think my problem with it, which is the that we didn't get two tier one teams in the national championship. I think we solved that by the March Madness season you were talking about, which is
yeah.
conference championship game and a win absolutely gets you in the tournament, but it does not get you the best seed by any means. And that's the biggest problem. I mean,
Yeah.
we had talked. I think we never talked about it on the podcast, but like as you know, as the podcast knows, I'm a big Oregon Duck fan. We won the basketball conference tournament, and if it wasn't for that, Oregon would have not been in March Madness. But that didn't mean they got a 1 seed or a top 4 seed. They were the 11 seed. But it just the conference tournament got them in,
Oh,
no matter what.
sorry to interrupt you.
You're good.
I just want to stick it to every Padres fan watching right now. Dodgers
Uh-oh.
just got Roki Sasaki. So,
That just happened.
like, I just got the notification. I'm gonna cry.
Wow. Breaking news on the pod. Let's go, man.
Hey, they call me Jeff Passan.
That's crazy. So anyway, I think we'll see I wonder if they'll actually keep it the same format next year. We'll see what they do. But that was a solid episode, man. That was good. We got a lot of tape on that one, so hopefully YouTube doesn't mess this up. But if y'all made it to the end, appreciate you. Sorry it took a long time to kind of get back to recording. We just had a bunch of life stuff going on, but we're here. We're back for the playoffs. And root for our teams, Rams and Texans. Let's get it. So, Hayden, you got anything? He's texting
Shout out
Taylor for sure.
Shout out Roki Sasaki, my twin,
Yeah.
born on the exact same date. Dodgers free World Series bet is looking a lot better now since they added a top tier arm.
Yep.
Not saying I was ever doubting him coming to the Dodgers. Shout out Jacob Wiggins and shout out Taylor because I know that both of them are crying right now. And that brings me so much joy after a Chargers loss as well. But yeah, shout out.
All right, P, man.
I love that Roki Sasaki jersey. Hold on. Just hold on. Before we end the pod.
Okay. Oh, he's going to the vault right now.
I'm so locked in with this, dude. You had no idea. I've had this for over a year now. This is his Japanese jersey. The
That's
Dodger one's coming.
Crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It's about to be up here
I
eventually.
might have to throw
but
that on like all day today.
I just might have to. I told Taylor he could have it if they got Sasaki on the Padres, but
Well,
that's
they
not
didn't.
happening.
Peace.
Well, peace.
But
But yeah, no. LA, I love it.
LA, man. Yeah, that was a solid episode. So yeah, we'll be around as always. Follow the stuff below. Again, we were inactive for like 2 weeks with everything going on, but we're back. I'm gonna throw some picks up for tomorrow, for the games and for tonight as well. Obviously, by the time this is out, the games will be over for tonight. But we're posting content, so we're back. See y'all soon. Go Texans, baby.
Rams house.
Woo!